Welcome to Frame by Frame, a series dedicated to the craft of filmmaking. Now, let me ask you this. Can you tell me what movie this sound effect is from? The answer is The Grudge, but the goose flesh racing up your neck told you that already. The reason you remember that sound, though, reflects the genius behind Japanese horror films, or J-horror. American audiences have been fascinated by the genre ever since Gore Verbinski's 2002 shocker, The Ring, a remake of the 1998 Japanese film Ringu. Black-haired babes have been crawling out of screens to horrify us Yankees ever since. But why do we Western folk find these movies so mortifying? Well, after watching enough J-horror to win me a lifetime supply of PTSD, I think I found the answer. You see, J-horror uses sound effects to build suspense and scares in an unorthodox way, a tactic Western horror films often neglect. How does J-horror do this? Well, listen up. You might be surprised at what you hear. Okay, so first, let's define the technique. J-horror films tend to pair a sound effect with an entity. Think the sound of Takio's feet slamming against the wall in The Grudge. The ringtone from One Missed Call. Or the link between crying babies and the demon in Noroi. Typically, a recognizable sound is chosen, but it doesn't always match its source. I mean, unless you've met a lot of screeching cat kids. Now, this incongruity creates a subtle unease in a lo-fi way, and it's established early on that these sounds, whatever they may be, always precede the appearance of the associated entity. So, they become a diegetic sound effect, meaning they have a source in the film world, as opposed to a non-diegetic sound, which isn't tied to any action on screen. Now here's the second part of the equation. J-horror films focus on yurei, being similar to Western ghosts, which means they are rarely bound to physical laws, so they can show up anywhere, anytime. Now, if they do require a portal into our world, that access point is often a ubiquitous piece of technology. Think TVs, computers, or cell phones. Add this up and what do you get? A threat that can show up wherever, whenever, and with no more warning than a sound cue. Now, J-horror filmmakers don't sleep on this advantage either. Monsters be popping out of shit all the time, often in broad daylight in crowded venues. These scenes are peppered in to show the audience that they're never safe, and when danger's everywhere, a constant state of suspense is achieved. Compare that to Western monsters that are often bound by time of day, physical laws, or location. Side by side, American horror is just limited in ways J-horror isn't. You've got to invite the vampire in, remember? Yurei aren't so polite. They'll show up any damn place they please, with nothing more than a sound effect to telegraph their arrival. This means J-horror has greater flexibility when it comes to the design of scares too. You see, your common jump scare follows a three-part structure: the setup, the misdirection, and the scare. The setup throws a vapid victim into harm's way. They blunder around in the dark until the misdirection, which is often a false scare, and yet another reason to hate cats. But after Satan's furry hand-servant scurries away, we utter a collective sigh of relief.
It was just a cat. Let's keep moving.
Ah, the false scare fills us with an even falser sense of security, and with our defenses down, the true scare strikes. It's an effective method to be sure, but one every straight-to-VOD Hollywood hack has hacked into pieces. Which is why we Americans find J-horror so refreshingly repulsive. Needing only a sound effect to announce the arrival of an omnipresent threat, J-horror can subvert this structure easier. There's no need for a clunky setup. Cue the sound effect and danger becomes imminent. Not only that, but J-horror often does away with the misdirection. So now we're getting to scares in 2 steps instead of 3. Even worse for your heart, the time between the setup and the scare is either uncommonly short or long, which leaves us with what? Scares that defy conventional Western patterns, making them both harder to anticipate and eerily effective for American audiences. But let's rewind this ghost story before the bodies pile up too high. Japanese horror ties sound effects to incorporeal beings, which means scares can happen in more places without telegraphing themselves, and a less restricted threat means a higher probability of danger, which translates to an increase in overall suspense. Western horror, with all its rules and limitations, is tame by comparison, especially when the only thing holding back the demons of Japanese horror is the speed of sound. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and make sure to subscribe to this channel, Film Theory, for more fantastic film-related content. If you'd like to check out more Frame by Frame, click the frame to the left to watch an episode on the Italian horror influences on Crimson Peak. Or if you'd like to check out a Film Theory episode on Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, click the frame to the right. And until next time, my name is Kyle, and this has been Frame by Frame.